Hey there, everybody. Yeah, it's your good pal Dustin back with another episode of Turning Around on episode 77. But before we get to that, I hope everybody had a wonderful Sunday. I hope you got to worship God in whatever way that looks like for you, whether it be going to church, getting in your car, listening to Christian music, singing on Christian music, or reading your Bible, or if you feel me worthy enough, watching my videos. Whatever way you get your your Sunday dose of God and the Bible, I hope you got to do it today. I hope you had a blessed Sunday regardless, and I hope you have a blessed week ahead. So, again, turn around, episode 77, continuing our series on the 7 deadly sins, and we are moving on to wrath. Yes, that's right, wrath, the one that I think is arguably the worst of the 7 deadly sins. Like we talked about last week, the reason pride is considered the mother of all sin is because of what happened with Lucifer. His pride got the better of him and he was thrown out of heaven, never to rise again. But I never felt like pride is the most problematic of the 7 deadly sins. Mainly because I feel like only a very small percentage of people actually take pride to that extreme level of it being a sin. Whereas we all have gotten to that point of wrath. And I will explain what I mean as we go. So here we go. So what is wrath? As one might expect, wrath is synonymous with anger, as it says in Proverbs 15:1. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. So as you can see, here they use wrath and then they use anger, meaning that they are kind of synonymous. They are basically the same thing. Wrath is summarized as a strong and vengeful hatred and is constituted as a 7 deadly sin based on the consequences such strong hatred has in human society. Now, again, first example I can think of that I also said could be an example of pride is that German guy we all know and not like. Again, I'm not going to say his name because I don't know if that would vibe with YouTube. So I'm not going to say his name, but you know who I'm talking about. He went around, started a war, all because of his intense hatred for a particular group of people, that being the Jews. He went around, started a war, unalived billions of people, millions of people. So that is one reason why I feel like wrath is the worst of the 7, because it can cause tragedies like that. You can look at any of the unfortunate shootings at schools that happen in the US. Most of those take place because of a person's intense hatred for a particular race of people or a perceived slight that made them angry. A lot of human caused tragedies can likely be traced back to anger at a particular group of people or at a perceived slight from a group of people, causing such terrible tragedies as what I talked about. So that is why I feel wrath is the most problematic and the worst of the 7, because it can lead to such human tragedy. So some people may try to rationalize their tempers by saying things like, it's not a big deal. I blow up and then it's over. But so does a shotgun. Or or any other type of gun. And the damage those leaves behind is obvious. So it's not just a blow up and it's over. Yes, okay, but the same can be said of a gun, of a bomb. But the damage is there. You can see it. Now, with anger, it might not be as obvious as with a bomb or a gun, but the damage is still there. It could be a damaged relationship. It could be, if you got to that point of vengeful wrath, it could be you really hurt somebody. You know, it's not a big deal. It is a very big deal. It is, when you have those blow up anger moments, it is a big deal. And it can become a huge deal if you do not temper it. Push it down, keep it under control, whatever wording you want to use. Wrath is a deadly sin because it can and does lead to other sins, such as murder. Again, as I talked about, school shootings, Mr. German guy that we all know and don't like. You could argue that even though it was under the guise of war, what that guy over in Europe did, it was murder. Just straight up murder, the attempt to murder an entire race of people. Jesus even says in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5:22, "You've heard the commandment against murder, but I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother shall be liable to judgment." And that is because if we keep that anger, if we let that anger fester, it can lead to that terrible, vengeful wrath that leads to other sins, such as murder. Anger can. This is what I learned in school in a beginner's class for like law and that kind of stuff. But most of the time, adult SA. I'm hoping you all know what I'm talking about when I say SA. Most adult SA is traced back to rage. Now, rage against women, I get, would be the most obvious one. Not saying that men can't be victims of that too, but women is the most commonly seen. It is traced back to intense rage at that gender, that particular gender, whether it be male or female. So even SA is caused by rage. What other ones? Not so much robbery. That one's more envy, which I'll talk about in another video. I'll just end it there. The murder and SA can stem from rage, can stem from wrath. So we'll just leave it there. I can't think of any others off the top of my head. But wrath leads to many other sins. Now, contrary to what you might think, the way I'm talking, it's like, well, anger is just bad. You should never be angry. That's not necessarily the case. Anger itself is not the problem, but the nurturing of it, as I said earlier. Jesus says, anyone who is angry with their brother is liable to judgment. That is anger at your brother without dealing with that anger, with nurturing that anger, with letting that anger fester inside of you without getting it out, trying to make peace with your brother over whatever is causing your anger. When we let it fester and build up to the point of being destructive, that is when it becomes a problem. Because again, building up to the point of being destructive, that can lead to assault, that can lead to murder, that can lead to SA, that can lead to so many different types of destructive behavior, but only when we let it fester and when we nurture it. If we deal with the anger, if we try to make peace with the person who is causing that anger, even if peace cannot be achieved, at least you got your anger out in a healthy way. Jesus himself even got angry plenty of times, such as the money changers and the other markets that were in the temple. Look, you can look in Mark 3 or 11 and Luke 17 for other examples. Jesus even got angry. It is what we call today righteous anger, and that we'll talk about here. Anger is an emotion. It is one of the principal passions, along with love and hate, desire and fear, joy and sadness. It is not something that we can just turn off. It is something we all experience, whether we like it or not. Sometimes being angry can be good, such as being angry at an injustice or at loss, waste, or at needless pain. You want to be angry over the way this should be the KKK treats and talks about the black community. That's fine. That is an injustice. That is something that is worth being angry over. You want to be angry at the school shooters and the event in general. That's fine, because of the great loss and the waste of life and the needless pain. The needless pain for those who might be been injured in the event, or the needless pain of those who lose someone. They don't have to feel that pain. Being angry at those things, that is good. That is fine. That is just, because they are things that should not happen. They are things that Jesus directly contradicts when he says that the second most important commandment is to love our neighbors as ourselves, to love our fellow man as ourselves. Those injustice, loss, waste, needless pain, that is contradictory to that commandment, because most of the time that loss, that waste, that needless pain, that injustice, it is caused by other humans, when we should not be causing those things. We should be loving one another. We should be showing each other compassion, grace, mercy, love, all of those things. That is what we are meant to show our fellow man. Not injustice, not loss, not waste, and not needless pain. So being angry at those things, it is just because those things directly contradict the commandment to love our neighbors as ourselves, because those things are caused by other people. So anger is not the problem. It is when we don't voice that anger, we don't get that anger out, and it festers, that it starts to become a problem. Because anger can still cause us to sin. As Paul says in Ephesians 4:26 through 27, in your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. When we don't get our anger out, when we don't talk it out or vent it in some healthy way, whether that be protests, peaceful protests, whether it be helping during tragedies, like whether it be school shooting, whether it be a hurricane, helping the people who have lost so much, all the waste of resources because of those things, or of waste of life because of those things, and the needless pain caused because of those things. Activism is a good, healthy way to get your anger out, and we are not meant to let anger fester. That is what Paul says, in my opinion, when he says, do not let the sun go down while you are still angry. Because when you do that, you give the devil a foothold. You give him a foothold to nurture that anger, to let that anger fester until it explodes out in a wrathful vengeance that causes you to do something you could never take back. Anger can be constructive. Anger can stimulate constructive action. Again, such as at injustice. Again, like I said, activism against injustices. That is a constructive and healthy way to get your anger out. Talking is another way to get your anger out. It is when anger evolves to wrath that it rarely solves, builds up, or heals. Wrath is a heated, pent-up explosion of rage that aims at retaliation and vengeance. Has someone ever done something to you? Doesn't necessarily have to be physical, but has anyone ever done something to you and made you angry? And instead of getting that anger out in a constructive way, you let it fester, you let it boil over, and you do something that you later regret. I know I have done that in the past until I learned to keep my anger under control, to keep my anger at arm's length, that I stopped that. I have been the perpetrator of wrathful actions in the past, and I regret them to this day. I say fortunately, it's not fortunately, but I didn't cause any permanent harm. I didn't cause any permanent harm physically, emotionally. I didn't permanently harm any friendships. But I still regret those wrathful actions because I know that if I had not come out of that explosion of rage when I did, I could have caused irreparable damage. And that terrified me. It terrified me. It terrified my mother to the point where I had to go to anger management to learn how to keep my anger at arm's length. You could argue that my short temper was due to the loss of my father at such a young age, but that's just an excuse. At the end of the day, it's my emotion. No one else can control it. I am the only one that can control it. And so to this day, I regret those wrathful, angry actions that I did. Because it took judgment into its own hands, and that is what wrath does. It takes judgment into its own hands and inflicts punishment without mercy. With wrath, we give up control to our emotions and let them control our actions to the point it not only harms those around us, but ourselves as well. And I can attest to that. It harmed those around me, and it harmed myself. It harmed my self-esteem. It harmed my heart. It's hard to explain with words. But if you've ever committed wrathful actions, you know the harm to yourself that I'm talking about. We should always remember and recognize that God will serve justice to all. And what punishment could we as humans possibly inflict that would be worse than an eternity separated from God? God is the ultimate judge. He is the ultimate purveyor of punishment to those who deserve it. And that punishment is an eternity separated from Him, an eternity of pain and torment in hell. What can I or we as humans do that could possibly be any worse than that. And sure, you could in your mind you're probably thinking, oh, I could think of a lot of things that would, but at the end of the day, those things that we can cause are temporary. Temporary until we feel they've been punished enough, or temporary to the fact of once they pass on, we can no longer do anything to them. It is the eternal punishment that God gives that is the ultimate punishment. So remember, my friends, that to keep your anger at arm's length, don't let it fester. Don't give the devil a foothold in your heart, in your mind. Don't let the sun go down while you are still angry. Get your anger out, whether it is talking to the person that is making you angry, whether it is activism, if it's anger against something like injustice. Get your anger out. Don't let it fester and turn to wrath, that heated, pent-up explosion of rage. As always, thank you for being here, my friends. I hope you got something out of this. Again, I know I'm not the most eloquent of speakers, but I do my best. I hope you got something out of this. And if you enjoy my videos, please do remember to like, share, and subscribe so that hopefully my videos can get out to more people, whether it be more Christians or more people who are just looking for a little bit of hope. And always remember, my friends, that I love you, God loves you, and please remember to love yourselves and those around you. Until next time, my friends, bye!